10th annual Walk and Roll for Ataxia to help bring awareness to what ataxia is, to help raise funds, is coming up in Auburn. And if you've been with us over the years, then hopefully you know John and Dana. And thank you both so much for being here. And John, I mean, when I first met you, we're going to get you in just a moment. When I first met you, of course, I really didn't know anything about ataxia, and I think that's probably still perhaps the majority of people. But I would say that over this 10 years, do you feel that there are now more people who go, oh, right, I have heard about that? In other words, all of your efforts over these last 10 years, they're making a difference.
Yes, I am finally seeing that within the last 3 years, and it's good in a way because it's hard work. We go many different places, whether it be schools or different places in the States. I see our shirts go by, you know, from previous walks, and that's just amazing itself. My neighbors are now focusing more on it when they just wouldn't grasp for more information.
And I have to say, you look great. And Dana, well, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back 10 years ago, because I guess the way that it kind of was in my mind and the way that we talked some over the years, I wasn't sure we'd be having a conversation like this, you know, 10 years on, where you would still, you know, look like you. I mean, is this this is something maybe that the people understand exactly what ataxia is and what it does to a person's body?
Yeah, I would say that there's many degrees of ataxia. There's a lot of different diagnoses. John is less physically impaired than most. However, we're learning in the last few years that there's an effect of ataxia on someone's cognition and someone's ability to remember things. And John is more impacted in those ways. So it's not really that you would look at John and say, oh, you know, this person, you know, he looks like he has difficulty walking and he's a little off balance. But it's more with his cognitive recall that he is impacted with this disease. So that's kind of new within the last several years. We only thought of ataxia as being a physical issue.
Yeah, well, I know in those first years you would say, you know, you'd sort of hear the whispers. Oh, look at that guy. That guy's had, you know, that guy's had one too many.
Yep.
Which hopefully it still happens every once in a while.
Listen,
all right, so I want you, actually, I'm going to have you, if you will, introduce our guest, because this to me is a great story of from student to doctor to professor. And John, you've been there along that journey. As a matter of fact, you, ataxia, have been part of this.
Yeah, it was 9 years ago. I got a phone call from a girl that was going to, Laura, that was going to UMass, and she was working on a project, and she was interested if I would give up a half hour of my time to do this program that they were doing. It was basically a memory and speed and type thing. And I mentioned that I was having a walk for ataxia, and she brought a big portion of the school down, the science department. They showed up, and they've been coming every year to the walk, and she ended up graduating, and then she's teaching now in her own science class, and now I'm her live specimen.
All right, doctor, tell us about that. Tell us about your class and some of the work that you do in the way in which your students now know about ataxia.
Well, I teach a class that's specifically on the kind of neuroscience behind different diseases and disorders. And for a lot of our students, they have some familiarity with some of the more well-known diseases. They have a family member with Alzheimer's disease and things like that. But I think it's really important to give students some perspective on what it's like to have ataxia. It's a disease that a lot of students hadn't heard about before my class. And so John comes in and he tells his story. They get to see him do some motor tests and things like that. And really the important thing is they walk away having a personal connection to ataxia, and it's our goal to just expose enough students to ataxia that at least some of them will go on and contribute down the line to the science behind ataxia.
Yeah, from the time that you were a student to now, and as a professor, and as a doctor as well, do you see where steps have been made over the last 9 or 10 years? Do we know more about how to treat something like ataxia?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of really great research that's coming out now on things that are as simple as exercise and getting good sleep, things like that. But kind of what Dana alluded to, we're only just scratching the surface as to what symptoms ataxia really has. I mean, ataxia is a broad symptom. It's affecting a number of different brain regions, primarily this one called the cerebellum we're still learning about. So there's a lot more to do. But there's been a lot of really great research that's come out in the last few years especially.
Is there something about the world that we live in today in 2017 that leads to more of these sort of neurological diseases, or are we just finding out more about them or hearing more about them?
I think it's more the latter. I think there's a lot more that we're learning. I think people are a little bit more willing to have conversations about symptoms that maybe seem off. It's a little bit less stigmatized now than it was before to talk about memory issues or to talk about emotional issues. And so I think we're really just observing more than we were before.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. And as you said now, your class has more of not this emotional connection, but I'm guessing that there may be some then who go, hey, I'm going to be the person who's going to find that cure
Exactly.
someday as well.
Yeah.
We just have a minute left here, and then we're going to get a little bit more into actually the walk and roll and talk a little bit about that. But I'm interested in your perspective. Do you feel that through Laura, through her work, the research, that strides are being made?
Yeah, I really do. I think the National Ataxia Foundation has changed their mission over the last several years. In 2015, their board of directors took a really aggressive approach to having some aggressive goals for the organization. And it was really about investing in the organization to kind of spur some innovation and also to come up with ways to really research this and to kind of make a connection between the patients, the drug companies, also, the research people, the research folks, to make it kind of close that circle because we need to find a cure for this.
And that is what we need. And the awareness is such a big part of it. All right, and that's where we come in. Our part's pretty easy. We just have to go to the walk and roll, and we're going to tell you all about that straight ahead on the Hank Stolz Experience. When you go to the walk, when you go to the website to find out about the walk and roll, it will tell you that you're going to Bristol, Rhode Island. Don't worry about me. I'm just stuck in the past of the last years when it was in Auburn. But it's grown. This is actually a good sign because it has grown so much, and we welcome Senator Michael Moore with us here as well because it's grown so much, right, guys? I mean, this is the thing, and that goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago. That more and more people now are actually becoming aware of ataxia, and why don't I ask you? In the beginning, it seemed to be, and as I remember, even when they were trying to correctly diagnose, there was a lot of thoughts about is it Lou Gehrig's disease? Is it something else? And now people are understanding that ataxia is something that needs our donations, needs our help to find a cure.
Yeah, and I think that it still takes a while to diagnose because they have to rule out other things first. So they go through a progression of ruling stuff out, and then they land with ataxia afterwards. So I think that it's really critical for people who think they might have ataxia or have been recently diagnosed with ataxia to belong to the CORDS registry. That's really a critical piece.
And what is that CORDS
So
registry?
CORDS is an acronym that stands for Coordination of Rare Diseases through Sanford University. And it is a registry that connects patients with the latest research studies that are going on that they can participate in. And it's a really great way for people to participate in what could potentially be a cure down the road.
Wow.
So we really
hopefully,
encourage that with the Ataxia Foundation.
All right, let's talk about the walk and roll. And John, is that actually where you first met Senator Moore at the walk and roll at that first one?
No.
No.
You had it had been before that? No.
Mike met me
It's
on the
quite a
ground.
story.
As actually Auburn was having, I think, their first grand opening of the Pappas
Pappas
Field,
Field.
and one of the people who were helping run one of the stands actually said, you know, I got to meet John that day. So as soon as the ceremony ended, I hadn't yet connected with her, and as John said, from a distance as I'm walking away, I saw this person on the ground, and so it.
You said, "Can I help you, sir?"
Well, actually, yeah, I did. You know, no disrespect, but I didn't know if he was drunk or what.
Right.
Yeah, we already talked about that.
So
that
and I was like, oh no, this is John, so I want you to meet.
Wow.
So that was my first
Interesting.
encounter with basically a
And,
taxi.
and that was really it. Exactly. So everybody, that's what one of the things that we've been saying too, Mike. You know, I mean, we go back 10 years. I do think that more people are aware. The walk and roll has had a big impact. The work that you guys have done, you've done so much on social media and YouTube that has done it as well. What have you seen? Because you've been involved now over this 10 years.
Yeah, he's been a great partner for us.
This is it. It's actually people becoming aware of it. You know, when he first mentioned the disease, I think 99% of the public, I never heard of it before. Then when you hear all the symptoms, I think a lot of people just assumed if they saw someone that had these types of characteristics, it was some either Lou Gehrig's disease or some other disease. So I think John and they have done a great job of raising the awareness and really getting people out there to understand.
State House, I know that you have gone and you've talked to other legislators about this. What can be done? What is being done at a state level as far as our legislature?
It's just trying to find more ways to promote to get resources for research. You know, we have a lot of people that criticize money going to our state universities or to, I guess, I'm going to say some of our drug companies or different medical research companies, but that's what they do. The money can go to that to help research, to try to find cures, or try to find ways to help people live longer or help have a better quality of life.
That really leads us into it. 3 years ago, we came up as a foundation with a strategic plan. We've stuck to it. We were going after research and saying invest in research. Well, now we have a new approach. We need doors open, and doors are donors and the bio companies. Biohaven is one, stepped right up, $40,000, $60,000. Those are the ones that are going to help us get to bring a drug or a cure to the market. For instance, ALS has 23,000 people that are afflicted. They have over 40 different chapters, over $23 million in the bank. Then you got cystic fibrosis, 28,000 people and close to $173 million. We have the Ataxia Foundation, 150,000 affected, $2 million. One office, 5 staff. Wow. So what we need now is infrastructure. We've got to spend some money with infrastructure to help us to bring in more of the money. We only have staff of 4 people.
Yeah.
We're maxed out. If it shows that we need more chapters, and that's really going to buy ourselves.
Yeah, and on that vein, I brought notes because I
Yeah.
thought that some of this was really important to mention. NAF funds cutting-edge, relevant ataxia research, and they do it in the U.S. and internationally. And what's great about that is it's a global perspective. So you have scientists from around the world now looking at this disease, which they can, look at it with a different perspective. They might have different ideas on how to get to a cure. Also, the other thing that I just wanted to mention was for FY17, NAF is funding 27 promising ataxia research studies.
Boy. We've only got about 30 seconds. I want to remind everybody to make sure that they hit the website that's on their screen. Go to the Walk and Roll in Bristol, Rhode Island. And Mike, I'll give you just the last word. I mean, you're just talking about it. It's the funding. The funding is so important, and that's somewhere that I know that you've been able to help.
It really is. And it's through the education and making awareness that the more people that know about this, the easier it is for legislators to actually go back and try to raise the funding so that we can invest in some of our research facilities and companies so that they can try to find the cure or anything we can do to prevent.
Fantastic.
Because I want to be here in 5 more years.
Absolutely. Looking good. We'll see you all at the Walk and Roll. And thank you, as always, for joining us right here on the Hank Stolz Experience.
Rolling.